Welcome back, everybody, to another special episode of World 1-1. With me, as always, is my co-host, Eddie, the Magic Head Chocolate Nestle Wonder Ball. And also joining us this week is special guest, founder and general manager of IGN.com, Per Schneider.
Yes!
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for
joining us
to our nonsense.
Well,
yes.
I'm already very happy with your collection of Metroid stuff. And then Eddie's poster collection is quite impressive.
Yes, and my Zelda calendar's on like the right side of me. So, welcome, Pierre.
Thank you very much.
And if people don't know, Pierre is part of the NVC Nintendo Voice Chat podcast, which you guys can hear on IGN. Also subscribe to their YouTube channel, NVC Podcast. And like Larry said, he's general manager of IGN. He's a very busy man, got a lot of content going. And if you guys are not Prime subscribers, I do advise you guys to become an IGN Prime subscriber.
Well, thank you, man. You get the full range of shout-outs.
Yes.
All the pimps.
Hired.
So, Per, jumping in, since I know we've got limited amounts of your time, tell us a little bit about how IGN came to be, because I know you were one of the founders that started IGN.
Yeah, so the original website actually predates me. There was in 1996 Imagine Media, and the I in Imagine is the I in IGN actually. A print publishing company decided to create websites based on some of their magazines. PSX Power. There was an N64 website, N64.com, that didn't have a magazine equivalent at the time. So, smart people over there decided to say, hey, this internet thing seems to be getting big. Let's put some of these websites out. I joined in 97, but it wasn't until 1999 that we spun out IGN and it became a standalone company. So the company that you see today. And it went through some name changes. Originally, it was called Snowball.com, and it had, terrible name. Terrible. Don't watch the movie Clerks. It had a variety of brands under the Snowball umbrella. It was called briefly Affiliation, but eventually the name changed to IGN Entertainment. The name of the flagship brand, and I've been there ever since.
Oh, awesome!
Right on. So, as the GM for IGN, what does the typical day look like for you, out of curiosity?
The game master, typical day. Well, it depends on the day of the week. We start off the week by getting all the team leads together, and the leaders we have around the company. You've got your editorial and content team leaders. So the editor-in-chief, Steve Butts, the head of video, Wade Beckett, head of sales, Yael Pro, head of product and engineering, Todd Northcutt. And we get together with representatives from finance, HR, the whole shebang, and we catch up on, our KPIs. So KPIs are anything from, your website traffic, your growth on social platforms, your views on YouTube, the amount of money you brought in, the amount of money you had to spend to bring the money in, like all of that stuff. We kick off the week and we look at the health of the business. And then the rest of the week is really, dedicated to whatever big initiative we have going on, whether that's right now planning for E3, right? Making sure that we line up our programming, get guests booked, pay 100 billion different people to make sure that we have a booth at E3 and are ready to broadcast from there. But also working on partnerships. We've got a partnership with Twitter this year to broadcast our content. So every week brings something new and is something different. There's a lot of time too for content. So, I join obviously the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast every week. And there's very little time to actually play games in the office though, but we've got that too.
I hear that a lot from you guys.
I know the feeling.
That that a lot of games that you guys really want to play, you can't do it because you got to manage like work time and play time.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, I'm not a content guy, right? I wear a lot of hats, but you've got people who are reviewing a game, for example, and they would lock themselves in a room with a headset or play on a projector screen or on a TV here, play a game for review. So that kind of playing games for a living part still exists. But it's actually a lot more kind of show planning, recording stuff, capturing, writing that goes on at work. And then a lot of people just take games home at night and play them, right? Because I mean, if you're not, it's not a traditional job. It's not like where you ever leave your job behind. You still love games and play games at home, or you watch TV shows or movies after hours, and then kind of bring that experience back with you to the workplace.
Right on. So I know that we've got, like I said, limited time with you. There's a handful of questions from listeners and readers that we were asked to bring to you. So I wanted to go through a couple with them. One of our partners in crime over at NGR, Corey Deering, specifically, Corey demanded that we ask you about Metroid and if we're expecting to see anything from E3 or if we're just, hearing a whole lot of rumors and smoke.
Man,
the rumor mill has been awfully strong on that the last few weeks.
God, it's part of me wants to always say, and by the way, I don't know if a Metroid game is coming. Like, people believe and say after asking, and that they have Samus in Smash Brothers, and like even Wii U had Samus in Endoland, and like the characters around, they obviously haven't given up on her, and we don't talk about the 3DS game, but there have been some life signs in the past, and I keep on thinking, man, now is the time. They're going to come out, they're going to show either a Metroid Prime game or a new third-person game, and we're all going to freak out and be happy. And I go, well, they'll probably just do a Donkey Kong Country collection with 2 games in one, and Rare's been working on that and adding some new stages to it for the Switch. Like, the cynical side takes over. I gotta believe there is something. There's gotta be at least a 2D side scroller in the works, because how good were those games? How good?
Oh, I know.
Retro is
the era side-scrolling Metroid games, man.
I feel like Retro is not doing a Metroid game because they already got their new IP. If they're going to do a Metroid game, Team Ninja got it once again, because I think Other M is spectacular. And I think it's spectacular because it made...
That was you.
Yes.
You who liked it.
I gave it Game of the Year when it came out, 2010. Because, well, like I tell Larry about it, I'm like, Team Ninja has terrible camera angles in their games. If you play Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden 2, if you read the reviews, you will hear about how people complain about that camera. They did a fantastic job.
We got some audio issues.
Eddie got choppy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chopping, man.
It's probably Skype. Team Ninja was bad at camera angles with the Ninja Gaiden series. And they fixed all of that with Other M. And the action in Other M was really good. Yeah, the story was problematic, but I'm just like, give them another chance, because this is their first time working outside with another company making an action game. Just how like Nintendo worked with Platinum and said, you guys make Bayonetta 2 any way that you want to. I think if they work with Team Ninja again for a new Metroid, it would be better than what it is for Other M.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not an Other M hater. I thought the setup of the game from the beginning was very flawed. Like, I didn't want to control a character in a mechanic of turning the controller sideways. I think they felt it. In the end, it didn't work for me. I wanted proper control. But there were a lot of great moments in that game. There were a lot of things that I actually liked about Metroid. But it's tough to follow up Metroid Prime. That series was so awesome. The way they translated this kind of like 2D open world space to 3D to this first person kind of 3D universe. Yes. I'm hoping not. I don't think Team Ninja would be getting the next game, because Team Ninja is amazing, and I think Nintendo's very careful with whom they trust with their franchises. But you could imagine them going with a Namco again, a company like that, rather going down than going down that route. Maybe a new team, maybe an in-house team. Who knows? I think we all agree it's way over. We gotta see it. I would love them try, quite frankly, a third-person game. After playing Wild, all I want is this sense of being isolated and marooned. In a way, like Breath of the Wild was kind of like this perfect Metroid game where you wake up and you have nothing and you kind of reclaim your memories, and it's all about survival. And I would love to see them apply that to a third-person game where you actually have a gun and fire.
They would have to bring
Right
like
on.
new powers.
We've got one from Chris Soto. Says, do you think we'll see third parties show real support for the Switch at this E3? Or do
Yeah,
you think that's maybe further down the line, if at all?
I think Nintendo reaffirmed that their E3 presentation is going to focus on 2017 games. And so I think we may see a couple of port announcements, right? Things where publishers are now looking at the success of the Switch out of the gate, right? Like first month sales plus second another 280K in the US. That's good. That's good momentum despite the system being in short supply. I mean, you don't walk into a store and see one. Very different story from the Wii U, right? So I think third parties are definitely taking notice. And hopefully we'll see a little bit more of people bringing the A game, like a Capcom not putting a Street Fighter collection on the machine, but actually one of the newer titles and something bigger. I do think we'll see a couple kind of trailer announcements. We'll probably see the Switch logo in more presentations on the third-party side. We know Ubisoft has, one of the worst kept secrets coming to the Switch, and we may see a couple more titles. But I think the honest truth is that E3 is so close to the launch of the system, and the momentum. I think companies watch the momentum out of the gate, and I don't think they have much to show at E3. I think that will. You'll see announcement trailers, logo inclusions for some of the multi-platform titles, and then we'll see more later in the year.
Did you think more Eastern third parties going to support Switch than Western third party?
Yeah, I think so. I think Japan probably was on board a little bit earlier, and I think Square is a company where even at the reveal for the Switch, you saw a couple of games like Octopath Traveler, best name ever.
Oh, I can't wait for that game.
I'm banking on that, and certainly Atlas, some of these companies. Please, like somebody make an L game someday. I think we'll see more support from Japan certainly than from the Western companies at this time.
Yeah, because I think Bomberman and Switch helped Konami actually get back into people's good graces. So
yeah, and that was I think they had a couple of issues, but they've been dedicated to patching issues, making it, optimizing the code, and obviously DLC with Silent Hill. It's pretty cool to see that support. Hopefully, there's more to come.
Yeah, it's a nice change of face to see them actually putting an effort in somewhere rather than just trudging all their properties through the mud, which has had, I'm sure you're familiar, Jim Sterling dragging out the regular segment "Fuck Konami News."
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't envy the team at Konami on kind of trying to figure out how to run the business, right? There are a lot of challenges for companies making the big AAA games, trying to get a return on their investment. And, when you're especially when you're a public company, your shareholders have a lot of say, and they may say, you're making so much more money with pachinko machines. Why don't you do that instead, right? And I'm sure somebody who's on the creative side on Konami is not loving that sort of direction either. But yeah, I mean, they're sitting on a ton of beloved characters. I love the Goemon franchise, for example. That's more popular in Japan than over here. And I hope we'll see some of those characters return as well.
Come through, Legend of the Mystical Ninja. I need a remake so bad.
Gotta bring the Mystical Ninja in.
I think Konami will make more money on the Switch than than Sony and Microsoft. That's my thing.
You think so?
Yeah.
Metal Gear. I mean, they've got their multiplayer Metal Gear game coming. That's still a strong franchise, but I think if by making more money you mean more profit, I think that's probably true, because I do think the portable nature of the Switch makes it perfect for some of the smaller games too, that nevertheless can find a big audience, right? Like, there are certain mobile games that make millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that are not as involved to create and develop and to run as a Metal Gear or Final Fantasy. And I think, not that Puyo Tetris is a great example of that, but like, that game did not cost a lot to make. It's a quality title, and it'll make good money for them,
Yeah, and it's sold more. I think it's sold more. That game sold more on Switch than anybody else. Because I hear people talking about, when I'm playing Puyo Tetris, it's on Switch.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, it's a good game, right? It's really fun
It's
to play, and
it's the
it's an
perfect pick up and play.
even
Yeah.
better portable game. Exactly. Yeah.
So I've got one here from George Loftus. Wants to know if Nintendo hadn't have broken the glass and dropped the price on the 3DS, do you think the PS Vita would have still failed?
Wow, that's tough. Yeah, look, I think that like used to talk about Red Ocean. The gaming market didn't look like a red ocean because there was just one player in it, which is fewer than in the console or the PC market or anywhere where you can buy boxes and play games. Nintendo built a formidable great looking machine. It did things that the DS couldn't do, but it was fussy, right? It wasn't as pick up and play. And the 3DS and the entire DS line was like a tank. They're
Yeah.
not. They're cheap to buy, which makes them a perfect choice for families and people wanting to have a device that they can take on the go. But they're not that worried about like losing or breaking it as they would be an iPhone or an iPad or something more expensive, or a Vita. Yeah, I think the race would have looked much different if Nintendo hadn't dropped the price. I think they needed to make a really like distinguish the machine from the Vita in the price category. But I think honestly, the bigger factor is Pokemon. It all goes back to that, right? You saw what happened when Pokemon got unleashed on mobile platforms. A game that was played by more people than you could ever imagine, right? It became this phenomenon, not just because of the cool idea of doing that AR kind of catching Pokemon in the real world approach, but it was also the perfect brand. The Pokemon, the creatures are just so beloved. And I think that's a huge factor. And I think that's a huge factor behind the success of the Nintendo handhelds. Mario, Zelda, all these franchises help being on the DS and the 3DS, but I think the success was defined by Pokemon.
That's an empire builder right there. And,
Yeah.
Eddie and I were talking a couple weeks ago about whether or not, the announcement for Stars, and I told him, I said, we might see an announcement, but I think if they're smart, they won't bring it out onto the Switch until next year. Yeah. Just because if they were to bring it out now, they're still having supply issues. There'd be bloody riots in the street.
Yeah, I mean E3, you will hear the name Pokemon, no question about it. The question is just what game it will be.
I think it's gonna probably be like a mystery dungeon or maybe Pokken 2. It makes too much money on a handheld to bring to Switch. So that's why I think Nintendo's gonna keep it off, or the Pokemon Company is gonna keep that traditional Pokemon off that system because they make just too much. Like, look at the sales of Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's still selling today. X and Y is still selling today. So they probably don't want to ruin that, making like a $60 Pokemon game. Making it look flashy when they're already still making bank. Not only do their cards,
it would. You chop it up, Eddie. But it's no. I think it would be a pretty big deal if Nintendo made a kind of a special edition game, higher res sprite work and all that for the Switch. Mm-hmm. I'm not holding my breath for it, especially not for E3. I think that would be a huge statement, and I think that's it's hard to guess whether that will happen. I think it would be amazing for the Switch, but it would certainly tell a story that there are now fewer reasons to own a 3DS. And as you've seen with the 2DS announcements, they haven't given up on that platform. So I think you're right. I think it would be premature to have a mainline game on that machine. But I do think that, you'll hear something about some spin-offs.
Oh, that 2DS looks so sexy. I want it.
If it wasn't for the fact that I think I'm one of the last few people that actually still enjoys the 3D on my 3DS, I'd get on board with the 2DS XL. But
yeah. Good looking machine.
Oh, it is. The trim, the patterning on it, everything. They made a plain and simple sexy piece of hardware.
Yeah.
I want the Super Famicom button color combination so bad on that black and blue. Oh, that would just be so perfect for me.
So I got one here from Brian Haskell that actually I'm really curious to hear myself. Brian Haskell here parodied about the beginnings of. At the time, no one believed podcasts could be viable, but IGN went for it and would love for you to tell the story.
the word is still out whether they're viable as a moneymaker. I mean, NPR obviously is doing well on kind of an audience model, and Bloomberg and all those folks have done some great format. No, from perspective, the word is still out whether an audio podcast is a perspective. I think the answer is there, right? Audio programming can't fill, because every day there are thousands and thousands of people who are commuting, and they turn on their radio or they turn on a podcast and they want to listen to something and be entertained, or they're on the phone just to pass the time talking to somebody. And so we hadn't even thought about that back when podcasts were first taking off, and we hadn't really thought about that use case as being an important one that we wanted to fill. It was more that it was an easy production, unlike with a studio shoot where you have to have a cameraman and all that, and you have to actually put on pants. With a podcast, you can sit in a room with it going, and you can have fun. And it felt kind of like this space where you could just talk without the eye of the camera on you. And I got to give credit to a lot of other people who were at GN at the time, like Chris Roper and, Damon Hatfield, obviously, who's still here, who said, let's try this and, see if we can do something that people want to tune in for and listen to. And they stuck with it. Beyond, for example, one of the early podcast games, to later on we had, the Nintendo stuff with Week in Review, obviously with 2 eyes, terrible name. Three Red Lights, some of those early podcasts, and there was never a question about what's fun to do and fun to interact with the audience. It was, you got the feedback through email from a very passionate user base, and you guys know very well, like the moment you make a video and you put it on YouTube, it's not just in front of your fans. It's also in front of your detractors, and there are lots of people, for whatever reason, that dedicated their life to downvoting and saying snarky things and disagreeing. You don't get that with podcasts. Somebody who engages with audio programming and emails you is a fan. They like it, And if you tick them off, if you say something they don't agree with, they let you know. But it comes from a place of passion, and you keep the trolls out.
Right.
So, yeah, podcasts have been, we believe in them so much that we turned on the cameras pretty early on, in our ugly podcast room. And then last year, I took the team aside and I said, why is it that you dedicate so many hours to creating and promoting what has to be our ugliest video content? And like, if we believe in it, and if the audience loves it, then spend a little bit more time, put it in a studio, make it look better. That's what we do now. If you look at NVC and Beyond and Unlocked and, GameScoop now, I think the shows look much better. They're still very much shows and very similar in look, but, I think we've given them a little bit more life in the video format as well.
I say definitely. And the new studios look absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
So that's been a content value for what somebody wants to watch.
Yeah. Something you guys know, if you know Matt Scarpino, obviously the Scarpino family has been a friend of IGN's, with producer seducer when he left, found it kind of funny with Colin and Greg and Tim over there. But, his brother had always built studios for IGN, and he did this awesome setup for us at E3 with this kind of video wall background. And that was really the time where we said, hey, if we buy this video wall instead of renting it for Comic-Con or E3, with the podcast as well. So we bought that system. Kind of Funny is actually using a similar video wall, and just kind of tried playing around with it. You can see it in Up at Noon. Like, it has this big video wall. We haven't really applied it to NVC. NVC still has our classic studio from many, many years ago. But I think we can have a lot more fun with, if the shows grow, to put a little bit more video production effort into them and putting more stuff on the screen behind us.
Got a question from, I'm going to throw this one in here just because I like a good ego stroke as much as the next
before you answer that, Larry, Peer, one of yours that that used to be my podcast that I used to really listen to. Like One Up Yours and OneUp.com used to be a big influence for podcasts.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever check that out? Like their video production and like their different shows. Like did that kind of influence some of the podcasts that you guys were doing at that time?
I'm sure. I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak out of turn on behalf of Chris or Damon or some of the early guys who made podcasts. I do think that I think One Up was they were one of the early adopters of podcasts as a medium, and they did obviously with the One Up show they did kind of the longer form content pretty early on as well. I mean earlier before anybody knew how to make any money with that stuff. So I'm sure they were an influence, and One Up was part of the IGN family later. Unfortunately, that brand had passed from parent company to parent way back when, and the One Up guys worked from our office. Obviously, that's how they came to IGN. So I feel like we want to.
Like I said, I got one here that I want to throw because I love a good ego stroke as much as the next person. I suspect you do too. So, Lawyer Jodin asked how Pear is so handsome.
Okay.
So,
yeah, well, it takes a lot of work,
I can imagine. Though I will say I totally dug the picture that we used for the Ask Me post on the site. I got one last one here from Frank Clark, since I know we're coming up on your time here. Wants to know if there are any titles coming for Switch that you know of that are being worked on currently, third or first party, that you know about through connections or contacts, but you're not allowed to discuss or talk about. And if there are, can you at least say if some of these projects are worth getting hyped about?
Yeah.
You don't have to say what they are. Just do they exist and are they worth the hype?
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't anything like of the level of a Metroid or Mario, like something where there are games coming, but nothing of that caliber yet where it's put a little marker on your calendar and get excited. Nothing yet that I've seen or heard of. There are a couple of interesting projects.
Are you guys planning to do any first looks for any Nintendo games coming soon? Because I do enjoy that. I do enjoy like the Darksiders 3.
Yeah.
I love that first look. So, do you guys plan to do anything with Nintendo or try maybe indie games or anything with that?
We pitched. It's a little harder to do with the Japanese companies, but we opened IGN Japan late last year, so there's actually a Japanese office now, and I'm hopeful that we can do some first reveals with Japanese companies as well more frequently. You guys should know we definitely pitched Nintendo on doing a full month of IGN first with Breath of the Wild, for example, but it's. I think when you're caught in between the Nintendo of America and Nintendo Japan NCL kind of areas, and you'll more often see Nintendo in Japan rolling out like a glimpse of something in Korokoro Comics or in Famitsu or something. But I'm hopeful. We'll keep on pitching. I'd love to go deep with Splatoon, for example, right?
Yes.
But and then of course Mario would be a dream. And then of course if they're making a Metroid game,
My last question. Do you guys think of doing 100 underrated? I know you guys just did the 100 RPGs of all time, like that list. Did you think, because I haven't seen nobody did this yet, 100 games that's underrated? Critically acclaimed, but they just didn't sell well, because I think that's something a lot of major sites don't do. Of course there'll be a top shooters, a top action platform, but I'm just like, there's some underrated games that we kind of need to know and maybe go seek out and try.
Yeah, that's interesting. We do try to highlight indie games, right? Whenever something catches our attention, we like to put some weight behind it. And you've seen on IGN, you've seen very high review scores for games that aren't AAA. You can't call them underrated anymore because we gave them really high scores. But yeah, like what you're saying, kind of like the maybe a forgotten games or games you should know about that you might not know about list would be really, really awesome.
Yes.
We love doing the top 100s, and I think our audience loves to argue about them. In this case, I'm sure they'd argue about the fact that I knew about this game. Why are you pretending like this is underrated? So we'd have to come up with very, very clear criteria for that one. I think what's the next one we're doing? I think we're doing something in the TV realm, like something around Game of Thrones. But so that's a good suggestion.
And what's your favorite cereal? Because I don't know, I get killed for this.
My favorite cereal. Come on, Kellogg's.
This is the running joke here. Every time there's a guest,
Kellogg's Crunchy Nut. It's insane.
Which one? You froze up again.
Grew up in Germany. And you could find it everywhere. In the U.S., I don't know what happened, whether like Kellogg's found out that it's made from Soylent Green or people or something, but it's really hard. It's really hard to find, at least in California. So maybe on the East Coast it's common. I know in the UK they can find it because people taunt me with boxes of them.
Can you say it again? Because you froze.
It's Kellogg's Crunchy Nut.
Kellogg's Crunchy Nuts. Okay. Oh goodness, that's the old school cereal. Oh, my
Go
gosh.
get out. No, I mean they might have it in Chicago. They certainly don't have it in California.
So here's one for it's just dropped out of nowhere. The release of Phantom Dust, the sequel or full blown reboot, stands a snowball's chance in hell of finally coming about.
To say, right?
Oh, just a personal opinion. Do you think that that'll have the help get the series the traction again to make it worth their time and money to do it?
Yeah, very, very. I'm, when it comes to reboot releases, I think I can go back and play this on a previous console. Don't bring it back so early. But for me, Wind Waker was a great example where it's like, yeah, it wasn't that far removed from the original game. It was tweaked. It looked a little better. But having it's like when you're watching TV and an amazing movie is on that you would have never sought out again, and you're reminded how great it is. And I always appreciate a franchise returning and getting a second chance. That's why I'm hoping we'll get a Metroid Prime trilogy for the Switch. Like playing that on the go, I'd love that. You can always decide not to buy them. And the nice thing with reboots or re-releases is that it usually doesn't take the core team to do the port. Right? Like Nintendo will go to a company like Rezo and have them work on something, and that's not a lot of those studios don't create a lot of original IP, and so it's a great way to keep content flowing without without tasking the Breath of the Wild team or the Splatoon team.
Right. What's on the horizon for you and IGN?
What's on the horizon? That reminds me, I got to play Horizon.
No, you don't. Trust me.
I put that on hold now because Breath of the Wild came out.
Guess what? You already played Horizon. It's called Tomb Raider. Oh.
Yeah, fraction. We were born as a website, but over the years we made the decision that it's not about here's our website. You're on Facebook, come to us. You're on Twitter, come to us. It's about us taking the content and then putting the content on the different platforms. And so, if you follow us on Facebook or you follow us on Twitter, you'll notice that a lot of video content can already be consumed on those platforms without getting back to all. On Facebook, you can actually articles on Facebook from IGN, and you don't have to come back. You can do it on PlayStation, on Xbox. You can do it on Roku. We'd love to do an app for the Nintendo Switch. How cool would that be? But keep asking Nintendo for it. It's tough to get them to okay something like that. No, but for us, it's really about exploring all the different avenues that you can't get IGN content yet. So, whether that is, on television or, on a more recent platform like Snapchat, for example, where we have a huge audience now, it's about putting our content on all those different places and then figuring out what's the right content for the right platform. And so, that may mean different personalities, different styles of coverage, different beats that we cover. I don't know yet, but there's some cool prospects I think you'll hear more about soon.
Cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, Per, I want to thank you for your time. I know we're about at your minute's end here. Last bit of the show, and it's open floor for you here. the part that everyone do obligatorily. Pimp your shit.
Pimp my shit. Yeah, you can find us on IGN.com, just 3 letters. If you're in Snapchat, you can find us in Snapchat Discover. If you're on YouTube, you can find us on under IGN. But one cool thing that we did recently, specifically on YouTube, is we broke out some of our shows into separate channels. The reason is YouTube wasn't set up for content publishers like IGN. It was set up for individuals, right? Uploading a new video every day, that's a great cadence for that platform. The moment your back catalog of 80,000 videos and you upload 40 videos a day, the platform kind of fails. Like, it's very difficult to promote your content. And so what we quickly saw is when you take a show like NVC, or if we took your podcast and we put it on the main channel, not a lot of people discover it, because discovery is driven by watch time, by total views, and all that. And so what we decided to do is we take all our shows and put them on sub-channels. So if you want to help us out and you want to check out some of our content, look up Nintendo Voice Chat or IGN Beyond or Unlocked or GameScoop, any of these shows on YouTube, and subscribe to our channels. We got some cool ideas. We're going to be running some great contests, I think, around E3. So find us there, subscribe there. But more importantly, are you going to E3?
As I wanted to, and the pass for the show was bought, and unfortunately, health issues created finance issues, which made travel arrangements a nigh impossible. That kind of fell apart at the last minute.
That's
so
what I heard about that.
And
Sorry to hear that.
Oh no, it's all right.
If any of your listeners are coming to E3, we're going to have a meet and greet, so you can say hi in person.
Oh, cool.
And
Like I said, I would have loved to be able to be there and get to meet you and all the rest in person. But again, thank you so much for at least doing this. This is huge. I know, like I said, your time is precious as you have 5 billion plates spinning. So,
well, Larry, there are lots of other gaming events coming up. If you happen to go to PAX, I'm sure we can say hi in person. If you Gamescom, very small trip to Cologne, I'm sure that you can easily swing that one. No, to Germany. It's an awesome show. I'm planning to go this year again. It's really cool. But if you're ever in San Francisco, we actually have a tradition. It's called First Fridays, where we give people tours how it works. Like an impromptu 1-hour Q&A with staff from IGN. So if you guys are in town, of course, you're very, very welcome to join. And if it's not a Friday, I'm sure we can swing something too.
Right on. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Well, Per, thank you again. Have a great evening, and keep doing what you do, because we appreciate getting to, view, use, read, and consume your content. And, I suspect a great number of the people listening to our nonsense do as well. So it's a way to get the taste of us out of their mouth.
You guys are great. Stop it. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
You're
Take care, Per.
The next time we speak, it's while we're playing Metroid.
Definitely. Amen.
All right.
Eddie, your turn. Your hour-long podcast of other podcasts you do.
You can hear my podcast, Optional Opinion, on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and the AnomalousRadioNetwork.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at ThatRetroCode. You can hear my other podcast, Nintendo Power Block, where I do recording at NGR Radio. You can read my blogs, Optional Opinion, actually on IGN.com. Just search anime, ENIME. You guys be able to read those blogs. You also can check out my Let's Learn on Xbox One and PS4. On my Twitch channel. What I do with those is that I play a game and I actually teach about that genre, so you guys can check that out. You can check out my retro blogs, The Moment at skirmishfrogs.com, where I write about old retro games and how they played a big part in my life, in my gaming life. So you guys can check all of that out. You can follow World 101 Podcast at Twitter at World1_1 Podcast. And you can hear more of World 101 Podcast at shoutsengine.com.
Like Eddie said, find us and follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Shout Engine, where we're hosted. You'll also find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, most recently Podknife, as well as DNA Network, and coming soon to NGR Radio. make sure you click like on the Facebook page. It's where we put up the content, the news reviews, and the giveaways, and all the other stuff that we do in the week in between shows to keep you entertained. And jump into the forum page on Facebook as well. You'll find World 1-1 Podcast Forum. Join the group, join the conversation, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Pierre. See everybody later.
Thank you, guys. You have a good night. Say hi to the wife.
Will do.
All right. Later.
Take care.
Bye.
You